I think I know why Halo Studios is making Halo Combat Evolved again, and it's not because I think it's a good idea. I think they're doing it for the same reason that Disney couldn't come up with another villain to fight besides stormtroopers in their more recent Star Wars movies. It's the same reason Chris Evans is reprising his role as Captain America. It's the same reason why it feels like a brand new idea, a brand new piece of entertainment feels like this remarkable achievement in 2026. I think Halo is a victim of corporate rot, the enshittification matrix of how the entertainment industry and obviously the gaming industry is run. And don't worry, I'm not boomer coding this video. Last year was a great year for fresh, new movies and television. There's plenty of new stuff out there that's great quality. But I have noticed a pattern with a lot of these big entertainment corporations and the topic selection. And I think Halo kind of falls under that umbrella. And in this video, I wanted to put my hat in the ring on ideas to help the Halo license, at least in terms of ideas that I think would do really well. I'm also going to talk about what the fuck happened to Halo and why I think it ended up falling apart. And it's not because of woke or pronouns. If you think the video was going to take that angle, you're on the wrong channel, I'm afraid. But first, let's talk about what made the original Halo games work. Halo Combat Evolved was a well-made game mechanically, but it was also an exciting cinematic experience. It's also worth mentioning that Bungie wasn't exactly new to this. They had worked on Myth, Oni, Marathon, of course. They had experience making narrative video games. So I think Bungie really benefited from the fact that this wasn't really their first rodeo, and the fact that the Xbox was releasing at the time that it did, ingratiating an entire generation of teenage boys to a brand new science fiction IP. Another significant factor at play here was that Xbox Live wasn't around yet. Halo Combat Evolved would release in the fall of 2001, but Xbox Live wouldn't come out until 2002, and it didn't really get a lot of word-of-mouth marketing until 2004 by the time Halo 2 dropped. Halo was able to hit this perfect sweet spot right where multiplayer gaming was starting to become popular, but there was still a necessity to have a robust single-player experience so that people could justify spending $60 on your new game. Halo Combat Evolved has almost 40 minutes of cutscenes. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, and especially for the time, that was a pretty considerable amount of effort to put into a cinematic experience for a game about shooting aliens. So yes, the multiplayer component was important, especially the split screen kind of, connection forming aspects that you had with your friends, your neighbors, or your siblings. But what got Halo on the map was its single player. The levels were well designed and exciting. They were fun to play. The enemies were fun to fight, and the story was riveting. People were fans of the Halo brand in the same way that they might be a fan of Stargate or Star Trek. A lot of the conversations that we have now in hindsight, where we look at what 343 did with Halo 4 and Halo 5, and we say, oh, the jetpack thrusters were a bad idea, oh, sprint was a bad idea. These conversations didn't exist yet. Nobody looked at Halo and thought, wow, I guess there's no sprinting in it. There's another really important component of Halo Combat Evolved's success as an entertainment IP, and that's the fact that Eric Nyland wrote a freaking book for it in 7 weeks that released a month before the game even came out. I don't think a lot of people even know about that. I think a lot of people just kind of assume the Halo books got sprinkled throughout the course of the game's releases, and that's true. But can you think of the last time a book came out before a new video game? What company would even consider doing that right now? How do you pitch that to middle management? Who the hell are we going to put on payroll to write a book while we're in the middle of crunch time for developing a game? The competitive mechanical framework of Halo as a game was still evident in Halo Combat Evolved, but the refined aspects of its mechanical structure really came about with Halo 2, especially with Xbox Live increasing its popularity to a point that I don't think anybody at Bungie ever foresaw. But hey, guess what was helping Bungie retain an audience? More Halo stuff. There were 2 books that released between the span of Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 in 2004. Something that a fan could appreciate as art. The icing on the cake, of course, was that Halo 2's single-player narrative experience was also a slam dunk, and so they were able to keep a lot of momentum going for another 3 years, until the Xbox 360 came out in 2007. By the time Halo 3 came out, all Bungie really had to do was trim the fat and nurture what they had. They already did the hard part of getting this brand new IP out there into word-of-mouth marketing to make it a cultural staple for gamers and science fiction fans alike. Oh, by the way, another book, Ghost of Onyx, 2006. Halo 3 wasn't out yet, but hey, here's a little thing to sate your palate. We know you liked those other books. Here's another one. More lore, more world building. Wow, it's almost like it's art. It's almost like it's a science fiction property. Oh yeah, and you had Forge, so people could make maps. There was a community relationship with the devs. There was movie making. It was a community. It had something for everybody. And that free game run was just lightning in a bottle. I don't think anybody's ever going to do something like that again. But oh, what happened right before Halo 3 came out? October 2007, 1 month before Halo Contact Harvest, another book. Oh my gosh. What kind of nerd, what kind of dork game studio releases books to coincide with their game launches? Fucking Bungie did. It was an entertainment property. Do you get it? Do you get it? Maybe one person from Microsoft watching this video. And then we were this fucking close to figuring it out 2 years later, and that was Halo Wars. Now, Halo Wars was a Halo game that had nothing to do with any of these mechanical arguments that we have now. Oh, can Spartans sprint? Of course they fucking can. They're cyborg super soldiers. That doesn't matter, right? What you're doing instead is you're using your controller, pretend this is an Xbox 360 controller, to make your Spartans go over here and then shoot aliens. Oh, and there's tanks and aircraft. And you can and you can send orbital drop shock troopers from your ship in the sky and then make them shoot the aliens. That's fucking awesome, right? Yeah, it was awesome. It was fucking cool. It also expanded on the lore. Halo was becoming a thing. It was a science fiction thing. It had stuff. It had world building. It had action figures. It had this armor only appears in this iteration of the video game.
The things we want to do with Halo Wars was tell the Halo story, show the Halo universe in a different way.
And then if there was a purist talking shit about it, which did happen because it was a real-time strategy game on a console, kind of unprecedented for the time. Oh, who cares, Mr. StarCraft? The control scheme of the mouse and keyboard is much more suited to the... Shut up! Are they really charging $60 for just a single player? Yes. And then Halo 3 ODST came out in the fall of that year. The selling point of ODST was that it was just cool. It was just lore. It was just more Halo. And then next year we had Halo Reach, and then this is where it started to fall apart. So this was a point at which Bungie started to double down on mechanical decisions. We had a lot of hindsight. We had an entire 10 years of being able to get an idea of gamers' habits, what they wanted out of their games, what they appreciated, what was interesting to them. And Bungie said, we're gonna add sprint. And then the Halo players said, dude, that's gonna fuck with the map design. That's gonna fuck with power weapon spawn times. That's a huge advantage over all the other abilities. It's gonna be the best ability. And then Bungie said, who do you think's in charge here? And then everyone just kind of looked around like, I wasn't trying to be competitive. Shut up! We're gonna go make Destiny now. Peace out. And then everyone just kind of looked around like, huh? So at this point, Microsoft is full-blown panicking, right? Because their Hollywood star has decided that they don't want to make movies anymore, basically. They make their Franken studio, 343 Industries, which has some people from Bungie working on this, but it's basically a lot of new people that are just in this place at a certain point in time due to matter of circumstance. This is a good job for them. It's a great way for them to pad their resume, right? Working for Microsoft is, you know, it's a good company to work for, I guess. Anyway, they completely screw it up. People complained about the gameplay design and the mechanics. They added sprint to everyone. So the maps had to be spaced out in a way that you weren't really used to in the previous Halo games. The lore was weird. They retconned some of the stuff with the Forerunners, who were the extinct race that created the Halo rings in the first place, which was really a soft spot for people who got onboarded to this license. Again, like, let's go back to 2001. in this span of time, since 2001 to 2012, we've had a whole bunch of books, we've had a whole bunch of games that have kind of like set their own conditions for Halo lore, and then these guys come in claiming to be associated as like the torchbearers of the Halo franchise, and then they retcon half of the origin story for how the Forerunners work. Spartans aren't a war crime anymore. You don't have to abduct a child to make a Spartan super soldier. There's no consequences anymore. Anybody can be a fucking Spartan. Remember Buck? Remember him? He's a Spartan now. Halo 5. Anyone can do it. Your uncle can be a Spartan if he wants to. Halo 5, I don't even know where to start. There was a very, very, very brief window of time, thanks to Titanfall, where all the executives said, we gotta get in on this movement shooter thing. And so Halo 5 fell victim to that. Now, I don't hate the concept of the Mjolnir suit getting, like, more bells and whistles. That just makes sense that this technology is gonna evolve. But this wasn't the right audience to do this for. Even if, mechanically speaking, it had some interesting ideas just as a video game. And I'm gonna keep hammering it. The main problem with Halo 5, aside from the mechanical design, some people liked Halo 5 mechanically. Halo 5's primary problem was the narrative. The story sucked! Here's one of the primary opening cutscenes for Halo 5's story. Here's Halo 2.
There was only one ship.
How about ODST?
You know the music. Time to dance.
See how they're slow? See how it's just talking like a movie? See how it's not jingling keys? Like, wow, look, here's the, wow. It insists upon itself, to quote a poet. This is the exact same thing that happened to the Marvel movies and to varying degrees with Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, I think being the most prominent example of this phenomenon, where it's like, it's so clear and obvious that the writing team is just going into a boardroom and somebody is telling them, these are the things that you need to include in your writing. And if you don't include them, then we're missing the mark. Instead of just giving like a guy, like a nerd who had this idea, a blank slate to just write a good story, and we trust him to do it because he's a good writer. And if he's a bad writer, then God help us. But it's risky. And so a lot of studios don't do this, right? You get Black Ops 7 that was written by ChatGPT. I think. 343 didn't know what the hell they were doing, and neither did Microsoft, right? If Microsoft had known what they were doing, they wouldn't have put 343 in charge of it in the first place. 343 actually made the voice actors for Master Chief and Cortana re-audition for their roles. Where the hell was Microsoft during any of this? Microsoft's job at that point is to bring the hammer down and go, what the fuck are you doing? Imagine making Mark Hamill re-audition for Luke Skywalker. Like, what? So this is what I would have done instead. Let's look at the ODSTs as a lore example. The ODSTs are the closest thing in the Halo universe to your Delta Force, your Navy SEALs, your Tier 1 operatives, your Special Forces guys. That's why they have the appeal that they do among the John Gunman, tack shooter kind of variety of gamers. It's a really, really cool design that kind of combines like an astronaut with a Tier 1 Special Forces soldier. The helmet is a visually distinct part of the Halo universe. Different ODST soldiers have a little bit of personality depending on what they do with their helmets and kind of doctor them up. The ODSTs are a strong piece of lore, right, within the Halo universe. The way that they go into combat, right, is what their name entails. Orbital Drop Shock Trooper. They literally fly through the atmosphere in a little metal pod, and then they go and they do operator shit. ODSTs do not have Mjolnir suits, right? They don't have Spartan suits. So if they get hit by Blamite weapons, if they get hit by plasma weapons, it's going to hurt a lot freaking more than it would if you're in a Spartan suit. The ODSTs are just guys, right? And that's where it gets a little more intense in some ways, because they're not on an even playing field with the Covenant. Covenant elites, right, have shields. They're much taller, they're stronger, they're faster, they can take more punishment. It's very scary to fight an elite when you're not a Spartan. These little guys who seem like target practice when you play the Halo games suddenly become a lot more dangerous, because if you get hit a couple of times by a plasma pistol, it's a totally different scenario. Same thing with the jackals, especially the sniper jackals. The beam rifle is going to one-shot you like an op would in Counter-Strike. So this is one idea that I had. It always just kind of confused me why Halo never tried to do a tac shooter. It seems like a slam dunk to me. You could let the ODSTs like have their moment. You could give the guns, right? You could give the gun nerds a little bit more fun with the, you know, the gunplay of the battle rifle, or hell, even the assault rifle. What if those weapons were more realistic? Obviously, the assault rifle has this big, you know, bloom cone for gameplay reasons. What if you completely reimagined it in the context of a completely different game? These are all interesting, exciting ways to kind of like play around with the toys in this sandbox. But for whatever reason, Microsoft just decided, you know, to keep trying the same thing over and over again with people that are not cut out to be doing it. Microsoft didn't do a damn thing to avoid the situation that we have now with Halo being in this really unpopular state. Another idea I had with the Halo license was something like a Battlefield clone. Look at all the different Battlefield vehicles, right? We have SPAA, we have IFVs, Jeeps, right? Obviously, this is a Warthog. Obviously, this could be something, you know, analogous to a Scorpion, or maybe a whole brand new vehicle, right? Maybe you come up with something completely brand new. We don't even need to come up with a new anti-aircraft vehicle for the UNSC because we have it here in Halo Wars. Imagine doing callbacks to Halo Wars. What if Halo Wars had been able to actually set up some ground game for more iterations on the Halo license, right? What if we were able to flesh out this world in more varied, complex ways? What if there were patterns? What if there were callbacks? That's what you do with a license like this. You let other creative teams kind of come up with their own ideas, and then you take what works, and then you just keep building it and building it and building it and building it. And that's not what we did. Instead, we argued with the community about Sprint for 10 years. Finally, I want to talk about Sprint and why I'm so sick of this argument. I used to be on the side of, dude, of course they're super soldiers, of course they can sprint. Lore and mechanics don't have to be correlated all the time. But if you really want to go there with the Spartans, there are a number of different ways that you could have handled the sprint argument, especially when it came down to the actual gunplay mechanics. I know this to be a fact because one of the best first-person shooter games of all freaking time, many people would say the best of all time, doesn't have sprint, and it has exciting, kinetic, in-your-face, intense gunplay to match it. One of the lore implications about the pistol, especially as it's featured in Halo Combat Evolved, is that the reason that you can zoom in with it is that it's linked up to the neural lace of a Spartan's Mjolnir suit. Look at the distance from which Master Chief can accurately fire his weapon. I understand that it's a video game, right? And the reasons that somebody in Counter-Strike can shoot from a distance without ADSing aren't the same reasons that Master Chief can shoot from a distance without ADSing. People want the mechanics of Counter-Strike to be correct. Halo has a tougher job. The mechanics and the art both have to be locked in. So what can you do? Oh my gosh, how do we avoid adding sprint? I'm gonna tell you what, you're not gonna find the answer to those questions and what this license needs to do to invigorate a new audience by rehashing something that happened 25 years ago. I'm not a fool, right? I'm not gonna sit here and try to tell you, actually, this looks bad. It looks great, right? Like, the particle effects with the plasma weapons are really, really cool. You know, it's really intense. There's a lot going on here. They're playing around with the Unreal Engine 5, right? But the whole time I was watching this gameplay demo for Halo Campaign Evolved, which is just so, like, I don't even know how I feel about the title, if I'm being real. I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, Why can't we do this with a new game? Why are we redoing something that I already played 25 years ago? Halo Combat Evolved is right there. You can get the Master Chief Collection and play it anytime you want, and it still holds up. If somebody plays Halo Combat Evolved now and they think it's bad because the graphics look bad, maybe they kind of have shit taste and they probably aren't the kind of audience that we're looking for anyway. What is this gonna do? Is this going to attract new people to the brand? The kinds of people who were into Halo back then are just gonna look at this and go, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of like Halo Anniversary. And the new people who you think are gonna play it are probably gonna look at it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're probably gonna look at this and be like, I don't get it. Zoomers who have never interfaced with the Halo brand aren't gonna look at this and then wanna play Halo, right? A lot of Zoomers and Gen Alphas are gonna look at this and be like, it has like aliens? Okay. How come they don't get laser guns? They're still using like guns, but they got like lasers. Gen Alpha doesn't want to play a sci-fi shooter inspired by Stargate that released like 25 years ago. But they might play Space Counter-Strike if you gave it a chance. You have the material. There's so much you can do. It's such a big sandbox. There's so many things going on. And now we're back to retreading ground because we are scared. We're scared of pissing off our audience. And so just like a lot of the Star Wars movies have retread ground, like The Force Awakens was basically just a rehashed version of the plot from A New Hope, we fumbled the bag with Halo 4 through Infinite for almost, I guess, yeah, over 10 years at this point, that we're just so terrified. We don't want to screw it up. We don't want to make anyone angry. So we're just gonna do something that everybody liked again, and we're ignoring what even made it work in the first place. Halo was successful at the time that it came out because it was an exciting science fiction IP on the Xbox in a world where these kinds of games were usually relegated to the PC as these like kind of, you know, isolated, confined, competitive experiences. It was at the dawn of the millennium for new possibilities about what we were going to do with technology and personal computing. What does a computerized soldier look like, right? The reasons that Star Wars did phenomenally well at the time that it did back in the 70s aren't the reasons that The Force Awakens did well when it came out relatively recently. You have to stop being scared of your own shadow. You have to move on. You have to do your own thing. And I know that Halo Studios, formerly 343, is scared shitless of doing something original because they've had very mixed, putting it lightly, results with doing their own thing. Maybe instead of trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, hey, do you guys like Sprint yet? Do you guys like Sprint? Play with the sandbox a little bit and just try something else. But we're not going to get that, right? We're not going to move on. We're not going to try new things because the executives in the boardroom who told them to make this, or maybe it was an independent decision, I don't know. Whatever the thought process was, we don't want to grow up. We don't want to grow up. We don't want to move on. We just want to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again because we know that we're going to get a certain floor of sales. And that's not how you make good art. This is visually impressive, but it's a game that I've already played. And watching it makes me feel like my brain is in a microwave. I consider myself a big Halo fan. I know that I've gone on record talking about Halo in the past, and I've gotten ratioed really hard on Twitter, but I still consider myself a huge fan of this license. And over time, I've heard the complaints that people have had about 343's handling of it in the past, and I've come to understand where a lot of Halo fans are coming from. That doesn't mean that a lot of the mean-spirited or sometimes downright cruel remarks that people make at the expense of 343's developers are valid, but I do think that 343 had a lot of opportunities to do something interesting with this license. And I would like them to do something interesting with the license. You know, just for their sake and for my sake. I haven't read fiction in a really long time, and I figure it's low barrier to entry if I start out with something I'm already familiar with, so I think I'm going to take a crack at the old Halo paperbacks. But if you guys found this video interesting, please give it a like and share it with your friends. It really does go a long way. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Deuces.